a certain level of abstraction. So not in particular viewed at a neurological level. The idea is not that everything you find in a certain box, as it were, occurs in one particular region of the brain, although that might be the case, any more than everything that's going on in a particular box in a representation of a program on your computer is going on in a particular place within the computer. But what is intended is that these are functionally discrete components of the mind viewed as an information processing system. And as I say, the background assumption here is one that's broadly shared in contemporary cognitive science.
I just want to interject quickly also one question on this topic, because it seems to me that you could go, partly picking up what Billy has said about the networks within networks, because I think, Franco, you could go even a little bit further with the murder of Gonzago, because it strikes me that the murder of Gonzago is a kind of diagram inside the diagram, if you like, that it is a play that is deliberately trying to map out in a really micro way something different from speaking directions. It seems to be actions or events of some kind. And I guess I was wondering whether, in the first place, you couldn't take that as a way of a different kind of model of network. In other words, you've chosen to define character as speaking directions. And could you just say a little bit about what it might look like if you chose a different variable, say, like action or like event? I think you might come up with a really powerful explanation of some of the problems that have preoccupied critics about Hamlet. There's this question of action. It just seems to me that it would be a very different kind of network, and maybe even the play is telling you this is the kind of analysis you should be doing.
Yeah. No, this is, in my reply to Kate, this is exactly what I will try to do by analyzing the reported, the diegetic layer in novels, because that is entirely a layer of actions, reported actions. And so to see the relationship between the two, you know, in plays, really, most actions are words. So really the best way to do that would be to have a semantic networks superimposed to this. But yes, then they, every now and then, they also sort of use swords and all of that is look, this is, as I said, the beginning of the beginning. But that is something that has to be done. No question about it.
Brad. Okay, we'll go to this young man here, and then we'll go to
my question's for Professor Stich, and it's actually like two questions. It's the first is since like recent studies have shown that morality is more or less taste or relative, where then does the validity of moral judgment come from? And my second question is when you described moral moral decision making as kludge. Couldn't why does it have to be good enough? Can't we, since we have this knowledge now, try to change our morality in a way that we can still live together but maximize utility?
Well, two good questions. First of all, I don't think it's the case, as you put it, that recent studies have shown, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but roughly that all morality is relative or what have you. It seems to me that these are still open, difficult questions, and we don't yet understand the extent to which there are universal or pan-cultural components of morality, the extent to which aspects of people's moral judgments are culturally local. And indeed, some of the most interesting work out there is work suggesting that at least rich structural components of our moral cognition system are in fact pan-cultural and maybe universal. The work of people like Mark Hauser at Harvard and John McKyle suggesting that, for example, superimposed on all moralities everywhere in the world is a certain conception of action, and only moralities that mesh with that conception of action are internalizable or learnable by human beings. Okay? Well, if that's true, and there's certainly a fair amount of really interesting evidence, including some studies by John Mikhail looking at, I forget the exact number, but 105 legal systems all around the world, and the claim is every last one of them reflects that structure. Okay? This is a guess, certainly not something that I can claim to demonstrate, but my guess is, in the end of the day, what we're going to see is that moral structures in human beings are partly and significantly constrained by our innate endowment that ultimately can be traced to evolutionary considerations, and partly culturally local. Okay? Now, you then said, so we can reconstruct your question against that background, but if I'm right, and again, that's a big if, but if I'm right, you might say, well, all right, let's focus on the culturally local parts. Then where, as you put it, does the validity come from? That's a very hard question. The first step any philosopher would make in addressing it is to want to know a lot more about what exactly you have in mind by validity. Okay? But certainly some of the conceptions of moral cognition that I see emerging from recent studies do in fact suggest a certain kind of or degree of moral skepticism, a view that says if what you're looking for is a single correct answer, there may not be one. Okay? So one way of answering your question is to reject the presupposition that there is, as you put it, validity there. Right, now your second part, remind me, give me a keyword.
It was whether we could reconstruct.
Interesting suggestion, and again, the answer is we don't know. That to the extent that there are strong constraints, there are going to be limits on the kinds of reconstruction we can do. Of course, changes do occur. We've seen it in my lifetime and yours. So obviously there's plenty of room for flexibility. To the extent there are strong constraints, the flexibility may be limited. Okay? So putting the two parts of the question together, you suggested at the end, as a number of other people have, including eminent moral theorists, people like Peter Singer, that, well, maybe the right thing to do is to go whole hog utilitarian, right? And there's certain theoretical attractiveness to it. If views like the Hauser-Mikhail story about the architecture of moral cognition are right, then there's a good reason why utilitarianism has, at best, very limited bite in most areas of our moral lives. That is to say, you can be attracted to it, but you can't sell it on Oprah. And the answer is, if Hauser and Mikhail are right about the kinds of innate constraints that our mind